So the purpose of this video is to demonstrate how to isolate variables when you are working with the gas laws. Some of the students had some troubles with this and wanted a little bit of a brush up on this, and so we're going to review some concepts. So let's say you're working on a problem and you've determined from the information that they've given you that you will need to use Boyle's law. And let's say the problem states something like solve for V1. So we are looking for V1 and we want to isolate V1. Here's what I like to do. We have our formula, so we're going to write the formula first. Next, let's circle V1 because that's what we want to keep. We want to isolate that on its own and get everything else away from it. So we have this P1 on this side here. We need to get rid of P1 and let's underline it. P1 needs to come over here on this side here. And what we're going to do, remember we have the equal sign here. So what we do on the one side, we have to do on the other side. So if the variable is on top, we're going to divide both sides. So we're going to divide both sides by P1. P1 cancels out. And here we go. V1 equals P2, V2 over P1. Easy. I've got V1 isolated and then I can finish the rest of the problem. Let's look at another one. Let's say we are doing a problem and we've decided that the formula that we will need to use is P1 over T1 equals P2 over T2. And let's say we need to solve for P1. So let's circle P1. And now I need to get rid of this T1, okay, so that P1 is on its own. And so the variable's on the bottom, and I'm going to multiply both sides. So I'm going to multiply both sides by T1. T1 cancels out, and we have P1 equals P2 over T2 times T1. And let's say we need to solve for T1. I need to solve for T1. Well, the first thing I need to do is get this T1 on top. T1 needs to get on top. So it's on the bottom, so I'm going to multiply both sides by T1. I've got P1 equals P2 T2 times T1. Now it's on top, so that's great. And now I have to get rid of the rest of this, get it onto this side, so that I have T1 on its own. So I have T2 on the bottom, so I'm going to multiply both sides by T2. But P2 is on the top, so I'm going to divide by P2. And if we do this, well, these cancel out. These will cancel out. And we'll have T2 times P1 over P2 equals T1. And now let's start off by trying to solve for V1. So we need to isolate V1. T1 is on the bottom, so let's multiply both sides by T1. We still have this P1, so let's divide by P1. And there is our problem. Notice an easy way to check for this here. We divided here by P1, which makes sense. If we had multiplied by P1, we would have had P1 squared, and that's not helping us. We're trying to get rid of these other variables so that all we're left with is the one variable. Let's try another one. Say we have PV equals nRT. And let's try to solve for n. What I like to do in this situation, since it's on the right-hand side, just leave it there. So what we need to do is get r and t away from n onto this side here. Well, we would say that these numbers are on the top, right? They're on the top. And so we're going to divide both sides by RT. My RT's canceled out. And you can also rearrange this for when you're starting to do your work. If it's easier for you, just would rearrange it. And then you start putting in your numbers. So let's do one more example. Let's solve for V. So I want to solve for V. So that means I want to get this P and get it over here. Well, the P's on top, so I'm going to divide both sides by P. P cancels out. Let's do another example. Let's solve for T2. We need to get the T up top, so we're going to multiply both sides by T2. Okay, and now we want to isolate this T2. T1's on the bottom, so let's multiply both sides by T1. And we need to get rid of this P1, so we will divide both sides by P1. So there's another example. So in summary, to do this, you're going to, 1, write down your equation, write the equation. 2, identify the variable they need to isolate. And 3, you're going to either multiply or divide to move other variables to the other side. So we will either multiply or divide to move the other variables to the other side of the equation. Follow these 3 steps and you should be successful. Good luck.